All right, guys. Today we are gonna be having Boss Babe is excited to work her entire life. Champagne.
I think who wouldn't want to not have to work?
I would actually always want to work. I
Really?
think a life without work, there's no challenge. It's boring. I personally think people who are like stay-at-home
Well, we'll
moms,
give you 10 years in the workforce.
they're
and
really
we'll see if you
strong. I
change
could
your
not
mind.
do that. Like,
Wait, you go ahead. Finish your point. Go ahead.
I was saying that I would always want to work because I feel like I would just feel empty that I'm not pursuing something that I love.
Do you want kids?
I am still kind of debating on that. If I'm
Well,
being
let's
honest.
leave that for a second. How old did you say you were?
22.
There we go.
Yeah, give it a decade, and then we'll see if you want to work or not. Give it a decade.
Some people enjoy
Give it a
working.
decade when you're working and you're grinding for 10 hours plus a day at your job, and then we'll see if you want to keep
Do
working.
you think there's guys who genuinely enjoy working? Like men?
Yes.
Do you think men
Yes.
why don't
I
you
think that most men are hardwired for it, and they absolutely enjoy it.
So you
But
think
they don't have to go into the conflict that women do, the biological conflict of wanting to have a family and childbearing and nesting. Men don't have this same conflict. Women do.
even
And the
if
other thing is that even though I know men absolutely love to work, right? I think that they absolutely would love to work on their passion projects even
Yep.
more than working at a job for a boss. So if you were to say, okay, man, you're liberated with $5 million to pursue X, I think that they would choose that very quickly.
Okay, but personally, I think like even if I would want to have a child, you can childbear and then you go back to work if you really truly enjoy it. Some women, you think there's not a single woman in this world who really doesn't enjoy working?
No, I would never say that there's not a single. I would never group
Oh my
anything in a
God.
monolith. I would say that that most women,
Don't like
the
it.
majority, the vast majority of women, if given the choice not to work or to work, would choose not to work.
Perhaps the
And
majority.
I don't think that that's true of men. I think that men would still choose to work, maybe not jobby jobs, but they would still choose to work. But I don't think most women would choose to work. And this bears out when you ask them if they would prefer to work or not work if they did not have to. Most of them say that they would prefer not to.
So do you think, because I always struggle to understand that, because for me, I am, like you say, men are hardwired to want to work. I think that is true for a majority, but for me, as someone who I could not see myself just not doing anything, I constantly have to be on the go and
Well,
constantly-
I think we're speaking past each other, so maybe we can clarify some things. It wouldn't be that you aren't doing anything, but let me ask you a question. Let's take a girl who works at Subway, and she says, I want to work, right?
Okay.
What the hell is the difference between her making a Subway sandwich for a customer and making a sandwich for her husband? I have never really understood that, you know what I mean? They're both work. It's just like, why would you want to go work for strangers instead of working for your family? I've never really understood that.
Well,
it just seems illogical and nonsensical to me.
I do understand that example. I think it just depends on occupation. Like for me, as someone who I wanted to be a lawyer, that's completely different. If you're, you know what I mean? If I would to be a submissive woman, that would, my lawyer skills or my debating skills or problem solving would not be helpful at all when, if I'm trying to be a submissive woman.
Yeah, they would be extremely helpful. So you know why we need really smart women raising children? Is because I don't want really dumb women raising children. So all those women who have the capacity to be really, really good lawyers and doctors and things like this, who have those really high IQs, I'd rather see them at home teaching their children.
And reprocreating. Sometimes I just don't understand these people that have a lot of money. They only have 1 or 2 kids. Millionaire. And you know what's crazy? You see that mostly in conservatives. Conservatives that have a lot of money, 1 or 2 kids. And they're married, and the guy is married older women. Like, it's something that I will never understand.
That's where I'd rather see them for the next generation to turn out all of those great I want those women having babies.
Yeah.
And I want them nurturing those babies and making the next high IQ generation, right? I don't want them wasted away in a cubicle. That seems silly to me.
Stupid.
But that's not a wasting away in their cubicle for them, if that's what they truly love to do. I do understand. I mean, if you're someone who wants to have kids, if you're a woman who wants to work a high occupation job and have kids, then for sure you got to make some sacrifices at some point of the child's life when you're working that position. But again, it is possible, and I don't think you should put away your passion to raise a kid because that
Look,
would.
If you want to work, if that's what you feel like you're compelled to do, and you don't actually want to do anything but that, fine. Nobody's saying that you can't do that, right? You can, and you have every right to. But for the vast majority of women, the conflict does not come between I want to work or do not want to work. It comes between I have to work, but I'd rather have a family.
That is a good differentiation. Very good.
That's the real conflict which comes up because we value education over family. That's what we do. That's why women get
100%.
married in their 30s now, because they want to have this social safety net, right? The safety net of something to fall back on. So the big conflict really doesn't come into play between women who just demand to be at work because they want to be there all day, but rather that they have to work because people have to work in modernity in order to make ends meet, right? But let me ask you this, now that I've kind of given you my view on this, do you think that if you went down the street and asked women, would you prefer to spend the rest of your life working, or would you prefer early on to be able to settle down with a man who could provide for you that you loved? Which answer do you think they'd give?
I mean, most likely they would want to have a family and settle down. But
Right.
But all I'm saying is that
That's my whole point, right? And so like I would prefer a society where we made that easier for them to do that, rather than a society which valued sending our best and brightest women not to carry the future generation of children, which only they could do, but rather to slave the workforce underneath a boss. That just seems insane to me.
Right, so everything is about the choice. I just think that there shouldn't be that much societal pressure to have kids if you don't want to. You know what I mean?
Why? Why shouldn't there be so much societal pressure instead to value going to college, for instance, where useless degrees are handed out like they're candy? In fact, it's so bad, the standards have gotten so low that anybody can do it. College can't be about rewarding the best and the brightest, or everybody couldn't get through college, but they can. And so the standards have necessarily lowered in order to appeal to the lowest common denominator. A high school diploma is the equivalency of a high school education just 70 years ago. Right. So it's like, why shouldn't there be a national propaganda around a nuclear family and having children, instead of national propaganda at wasting your youth and your childbearing years going and getting a worthless degree that almost nobody ever uses? I'd like to know the
Look at it. I like to just go to this one on the right for some reason. Why is that? Because she's the oldest. She's the oldest here, right? She's the oldest. And she knows better. But somehow, she's still giving bad advice to these young women. She, of course, she hasn't said anything, but with her bad language, the way she just prephrased the conversation right at the beginning, it make no sense, man. Think about it. If we don't reprocreate in the next couple of generations, man, I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know what's gonna happen. Of course, I'm not thinking about that. I have my own family, but why would you give that bad advice to, young adults? Like, okay, that you want to work, but however, you have to understand the consequences. So just deciding just to work because I like it. And you know what's crazy? I know somebody very close, my current job, that she decided to just work, and she just liked the work, and everything is about the thing job, and the job doesn't even pay that much. And I'm like, I just don't understand. I'm not telling her that, but I tell to myself, I just don't understand her. Like, how is this job that pay you $45,000 a year more important than having more than one kid? She only have one kid though. Man, I feel for that guy.
The answer to that question.
Because if you know that your true passion is being in this whatever occupation job that is, and then you have a society pressuring you to have a kid, and you feel like, oh, I have to do this, I have to sacrifice this, you're always going to regret not pursuing what you want to do, and that kid is going to know. That kid is going to know that you didn't do what you wanted to do. And that's
so what? So what? What do you think sacrifice is about, and patriotism? Do you think that men get drafted and have to go to war, right? That they don't look back and go, oh, I could have done X and I could have done Y and I could have done Z. There is
Man,
such a
good
thing as
point.
patriotism. There's such a thing in a nation as sacrifice for the nation. Why is this idea that everybody must endlessly pursue endless hedonism the best way instead of people pursuing what the greater good for the actual nation is? That seems way wiser to me. If you're gonna propagandize an entire country, why not propagandize them towards procreation and having nuclear families and things which are really good for the health of the nation? Why not do that?
So you're reading that as a grand scheme of things instead of in a particular family, because sometimes there are women and men who have kids and don't pursue something they wanted to do, and that affects the family, and that causes a generational trauma.
I don't know. I don't know. She gave me the vibe that she might have a lot high body count. I don't know why. And this is only my opinion, but there's something about her, the shoulder, the stomach. I don't know. There's something about it that just gave me like a lot higher body count.
That's every human being on planet Earth has some pursuance that they weren't able to do. The whole world is filled with failed rock stars and failed artists and failed, professionals of all kinds who chased a dream that they were not able to achieve. I mean, most people have some regret of something they weren't able to do. And this kind of idea of that, because people have kind of unachievable goals, that we shouldn't kind of move society towards these achievable things, which most people can do, which have proven time and time again to
Pay attention over here on the right.
increase the happiness levels of almost everybody around. That still seems way better to me.
Okay, so you think for the greater good, it is important to pursue something that you don't want, even if that's gonna make you and your family miserable, possibly.
Well, so this is loaded. Recognize how you said this, right? If it necessarily was going to make people's families miserable, how could it be for the greater good? That makes no sense. So if it was for the greater good, the most amount of people would find it useful, and the most amount of people would find this to be something which they would want to pursue, or it couldn't be for the greater good, right? It couldn't be.
I'm speaking of
how could it? You know what I mean?
I mean, you were speaking about greater good, and the way I understood, you were speaking about a nation and perhaps even a world, how it would work better in a world. But then there are going to be those really unhappy families who just did this because that was the societal pressure. I mean, that's always going to be the case. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but we're not going to. You would never in a million years, for instance, you would never say that there are going to be some people on planet Earth who perform better when they're doing drugs. There are. There's going to be some people who do. You would never say everybody should be able to do drugs because some people who do drugs perform better than others and have regrets they never did drugs. Does that even make sense? Would you ever say that in a million years?
Of course not. I don't think.
Of course not.
But I don't think drugs would affect anyone positively, to be honest with you.
No, wait a second. Caffeine doesn't affect
unless you're
people.
talking
Hang on,
about-
wait, hang on. Caffeine and sugar doesn't affect people positively?
Oh, that's what I was about to say. Unless you're talking about those things and like.
You mean drugs?
Like, do you mean something that was prescripted, or just you're gonna go?
Even prescriptive as well. There's all sorts of, like, for instance, you think narcotics like painkillers, which are highly addictive, aren't highly useful to society? Of course they are. And so, like, this idea that, wait a second, because some people would have preferred to have been on those drugs, that we can't regulate or propagandize against them, that's insanity. It's the same thing at the national level. This idea of endless hedonism and individualism with absolutely no thought to the greater society at whole is pure female solipsism. Men seem to understand this very well, and the men I talk to go, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We probably should move towards those things. But when you look at voting patterns, that's what those things move to. Patriotism, nuclear family, anti-degeneracy, that's what men vote for. Women vote purely around solipsism and let me do what I want.
Yeah, it's all. Let me do whatever the hell I want, whenever I want, without consequences. It's my body, my choice, right? My body, my choice. My body, my choice, right? That's one of the things I always hear. And interesting about the election, the main topic for female is, my body, my choice. Because it's all about them. All about them.
Which is just crazy to me.
if everyone understands that this is
different from males, which is immigration and economy. Isn't that interesting? We're thinking about the collective in this regard, the nation, the family, going to work. We're not talking about even guns. We're not even talking about guns, the Second Amendment. We're not talking about free speech. We are talking about immigration, economy, and females are talking about my body, my choice. That's so interesting, man. It's so disconnected.
optimal option. Why do you think, especially in this day and age, there's so many people who disagree with that?
Okay, I'm going to give you the answer, and you're not going to like it. For one reason only, because of women's suffrage. Women's suffrage absolutely destroyed the United States of America, and women's voting patterns prove it. And the truth of the matter is that women vote mostly against risk-taking. And because they vote mostly against risk-taking, they impede on people's freedoms. And so individual people, men especially, who had the opportunity to vote out illegal immigration, keep the country exactly how they wanted it to be, that was all completely destroyed by female suffrage.
That's what I said.
If only men had been able to vote in the United States of America, right now, the United States of America would be beyond the glorious shining example on the hill. It would be beyond that. And the voting patterns prove it. Every single time it's a vote for security over the freedom to actually pursue these higher values, women vote against it almost every single time.
Wow, that's...
Okay.
And that's what I think. I think that that's the primary problem. The primary problem is that the two sexes do not see eye to eye on what is valuable. Mm-hmm. And this is why I think that one's going...
Her here. She's thinking. Remember, guys, I'm picking on her because she's the oldest. She's supposed to be the wiser.
Have to inevitably choose, and it'll always move back that way. That all of this, what you see before you right now with egalitarianism, this will all reset eventually, and it'll just go back to primitivism. Men will be in charge anyway.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's
Andrew,
scary.
you're going to get canceled if you're talking like that, Andrew. You got to be careful. You're going to get canceled, my friend.
I don't think so. I think I've never actually. You know who knows this better than anybody?
Rachel.
Feminist theorists know this better than anybody else.
Oh, interesting.
Feminists are the ones who came up with force doctrine. I just borrowed it from them. They were the ones who understood that men at any time collectively could take charge, and there was very little women could do. Feminists theorized all of this. They knew all of this years and years before I was ever born, hundreds of years before I was born, in fact.
Interesting.
Almost 200 years before, in fact. It's their own writings that I go off of. They insisted, the feminists insisted that women had the right to vote. But when it came to women voting for the right to vote, they wouldn't let them do it because every time women had the opportunity to vote on their own voting rights, they voted against it.
Interesting conversation. You can see her, the one in the blue, having a lot of problems trying to digest the information. Because look at her. This is her. Hey, I don't know this person, right? However, I can see with my two eyes something's not right. But I might be wrong. Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you in the next one.